And okay. So just to, because I've explained this to you guys, but if there are people watching on YouTube, because there's a few people who they can't attend the course on Wednesday mornings because they're at work or something else. So they're doing the course on YouTube, right? But what we agreed is because of confidentiality and people to feel comfortable, we don't record the practices. That's the only part of the course of the sessions here. We don't record the practices. So I think I owe it to people who are doing it on YouTube to also explain that this morning we had a person was scheduled to do the practice with us, but at last minute we did prepare that practice last week, and it was a really good one. Um, yeah, we maybe in the future we can come back to it at some point. Um, but because she's sick, she apologized. She had to cancel this morning. So Mike stepped in and volunteered to do an impromptu practice with us. So it's going to be kind of just, raw. So yeah, all is good. All right. So let's start. Let me just adjust the screen here, and then we'll get Joan and Nicole to come up and do the first part, okay? Uh, while I go and do a breathing exercise. What's that? Okay.
Yeah. So welcome everyone to week 14. Off to a little bit of a rocky start, but it's gonna get better. Positive outlook here. I can't believe we're on week 14 already. Just a little reminder, March 11th to the 18th, which is the March break, there will be no course. So yeah, our fourth practice, rational mind remediation, is today. Mindfulness skills, which Joan and I will talk about. And that's page 131 to 147 of the green DBT workbook. And reviewing all the tools on session 17 of Dr. Plato's manual. Okay. All right. So this is a warning about meditation. Feel free to skip. I'll do this one.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, so feel free to skip the meditation if maybe you're just not feeling up for it today, or maybe a little bit emotional and dysregulated this morning. But take a few minutes now and checking in with yourself. What is the current risk that I'll experience a state of crisis? Is it low, moderate, high, very high, or extreme? Am I in the window of tolerance? Yes, I'm a little outside, or I'm very outside. Where is my energy tank right now? Am I full? Maybe 3/4, maybe half, maybe I'm near empty for energy. Have I been tracking my targets using the Whole's Diary card? How I would rate my targets right now, and how well I am focusing on what I'm doing. For example, paying attention so far this morning.
Okay, we're going to take a 5-minute loving kindness meditation. And I invite all of you to practice along with me if you would like. So let's start by sitting comfortably wherever you are, maybe feet on the floor, hands resting gently on your legs. Let's begin by arriving. It feels comfortable. Allow your eyes to close if you feel comfortable doing so. If not, just soften your gaze. Take a slow breath in through the nose and a gentle breath out through the mouth. Again, in and out. Allow the body to settle. Now bring your attention to your heart area. Not to change anything, just to notice. Loving kindness is not something we force. It's something we allow to emerge gently at its own pace. If warmth or kindness feels difficult today, that's okay. You can begin with neutral or curiosity. First, bring to mind yourself. Perhaps picture yourself as you are right now, or as someone who is trying their best. Silently offer these phrases or words that feel true for you. May I be safe. May I be at ease. May I be kind to myself. May I grow towards healing. Let the words land softly, without pressure. Now, bring to mind someone who feels easy to care about. Maybe a friend, a loved one, a pet, or even a kind presence. Notice what it feels like to hold them in your awareness. Offer the same wishes. May you be safe. May you be at ease. May you be treated with kindness. May you grow towards healing. Now, gently expand your awareness to this group. Each person here carrying their own story, their own history, their own struggles and hopes. No one here is untouched by pain. Has a quiet intention, offer, may we be safe together. May we be met with understanding. May we support one another's healing. May we grow slowly and steadily. If it feels appropriate, you might extend loving kindness outward to people in your life, simply to all those who are struggling in similar ways. You might say, may all beings be safe. May all beings find moments of peace. May all beings move towards healing. Now, return your attention to your breath. Notice the body sitting here, grounded and present. Loving kindness doesn't mean liking everything or excusing harm. It means recognizing shared humanity, including your own. Take one final gentle breath in and let it go. When you are ready, softly open your eyes. Okay, so today is a practice session, and unfortunately, Helga is not under the weather, so won't be able to participate in that. But do we have a? Oh, Michael is going to do it. Thank you. So we have Michael's going to join in for that, and this is our homework from last week. I won't go through every point there. This is the homework for the coming week, though. Submitting your questions and comments to our email, please. Read Simple Manual Session 18 on stress and trauma. We encourage you to do at least 2 rational mind remediations in the next week. Continue reviewing and practicing your crisis plans, diary cards, and chain analysis. Continue tracking and practicing all the skills you've learned, and review homework habits, that checklist each week. And here is the homeworks checklist. It's available on the website. We'll go through all that. And the weekly announcements. In the course, we frequently experiment with new approaches in the hope this will improve your experience. Sometimes it seems to, other times it doesn't. That was the spirit in which we tried the homework group Mondays from 12:30 to 1. Attendance at this group has rapidly declined. This is important feedback for us. We thank you for trying it out. We will continue our experimentation. As of next week, we won't be having the homework group. There's still a lot of interest in the Boyne group, Mondays from 1 to 2:30. As long that's the case, we'll continue with that. So homework group, starting next week, Dr. Cleo, is no longer going to be offered, but the Boyne group will still be offered from 1 to 2:30. And anyone wanting to change from Zoom to in-person attendance is welcome to do so. That's our reminder of the agreement. We'll go over that. Do you want to do Kate's summary
Sure.
from last week?
Kate has the best summaries. Oh my gosh, I love your little icons.
Yeah.
Okay, so last week we talked about DMM, so developmental maturational model. It describes how attachment issues present over the lifespan. 3 survival strategies with that little iceberg there. Rational, thinks in cause and effect, can distinguish past, present, and people and places. Emotional, so associated with the limbic system. So can't differentiate between people and places, past and present. Somatic, we feel, but it's mostly unconscious. Without rational awareness, it's responsible for states of calm, alert, or hyperarousal, designed to handle basic survival tasks. So the 4th mind is also something we talked about last week. So we have wise mind, rational mind, emotional mind, and last week we introduced somatic or visceral mind, our gut feelings and states of arousal. In a securely attached and emotionally healthy person, there is a free, unhindered exchange of information. So it goes somatic to emotional to cognitive levels. This is called true information. But with insecure attachment, the information is distorted as an adaptation to maintain attachment in unfavorable circumstances. Psychological growth will involve improving the quality and accuracy of information exchange within ourselves and with others. So this is the DMM PI model, so you can go ahead and look at that again. Repetition compulsion, when adults engage in the same type of relationship or attachment patterns as they did when they were children. It was for survival as a child, but now it's contributing to dysfunctional relationships. And these are the answers from the poll questions for the in-person participants from last week. So compulsive caregiving compliance, I stay safe in relationships by being helpful, agreeable, putting others' needs ahead of my own, even when it costs me. Not at all was 0%, a little bit was 0%, somewhat 22%, quite a bit 11%, and very much like me was 67%. Second question, aggressive, feigned helplessness. When I feel threatened or not heard, I may either push back strongly or present myself as overwhelmed or unable to cope in order to get a response. Not at all like me was 33%, a little bit was 33%, somewhat was 11%, quite a bit was 22%, and very much like me was 0%. Punitive seductive, I maintain closeness by altering between criticism, blame, emotional pressure and charm, warmth or intensity. Not at all like me, 33%, a little bit, 33%, somewhat 33%, quite a bit, and very much like me both had 0%. Compulsively promiscuous, I seek frequent connection, intimacy, or validation, but often avoid deep dependence on any one person. Not at all like me, 33%, a little bit, 22%, somewhat 22%, and quite a bit was 22%, very much like me was 0%. And 5, compulsively self-reliant. I cope by depending mainly on myself and minimizing my need for others, even when support might help, not at all, 0%, a little bit, 0%, somewhat 33%, quite a bit, 22%, and very much like me was 44%. I'll let you do this
Right.
part.
Yes. So for our emailed questions, as always, we had some very good questions, and we try to address most questions that are asked. These questions may interest one person or maybe the majority of people. Until we find a better way, we'll post answers that we think may be of interest to most people. But unfortunately, because of time, we cannot read all of them in the sessions. We will therefore read out a couple by show of hands, what everybody would like. But you can go back on the website and review the answers to the other questions that were submitted. This question, whose answer we'll read out today, is that correct, Doctor? Okay. So this question was submitted. How does Patricia Crittenden's DMM model, whoops, I can't read because that is up there. There it goes. Oh, dear. Conceive of what work needs to be done to help children who use acting out, anxious attachment, externalizing adaptations such as aggressive demands for attention or helplessness and incompetence or punitive or seductive. That's a big, important question. So what we came up with, what Dr. Cleto came up with here is he explains that in the DMM model, children who show, quote, acting out or anxious attachment and externalizing adaptations are understood not as presenting with behavioral problems, but as using developmentally adaptive solutions to dangerous or inconsistent or overwhelming caregiving. These children are typically using disorganized attachment strategies, which, as you might remember, combine with anxious and avoidant ones. These kids externalizing misbehavior, quote, not poor impulse control, as it often labeled. It is a survival strategy. These children's behavior is an attempt to deal with danger, misattunement, or rejection coming from caregivers. The question, if we were trying to help these children, can't be how we stop this behavior, but more importantly, what danger does the behavior manage and how can the child mature beyond it? The DMM says that the therapeutic or healing work should not focus primarily on behavioral control, but on helping the child feel safe by reducing the danger they perceive with their attachment figures and increasing predictability and non-retaliatory caregiving. Until the danger decreases, maturation and behavioral change cannot occur. Common components of this work include 1, helping kids name their feelings without acting them out. Use your words. 2, help them understand links between feeling, thought, consequence, and relationship outcome. Chain analysis, sort of similar here. And 3, help caregivers and kids go from using covert strategy to using cooperative ones. Different externalizing strategies and behaviors require different approaches. A, aggressive demands for attention attempt to force caregivers to respond when they have trouble doing so. The work in this case is to teach kids to ask for care in assertive rather than aggressive ways, and to help caregivers respond to these assertive requests before things get out of hand. B, helplessness and incompetence strategies are attempts to prevent abandonment by the kid appearing needy or incapable. The work in this case is therefore to support the kid to feel safe when they show competence and to reward their attempts at autonomy without caregiver withdrawal. At the same time, caregivers need to learn to tolerate the child's independence. C, punitive or seductive strategies are attempts to control powerful or emotional, unavailable caregivers. The work in this case is therefore to establish clear boundaries between the caregivers and the child, and to help the child give up inappropriate responsibility and establish in the child caregiver relationship age appropriate dependency. As you can see, the DMM doesn't focus just on the child, but on the child caregiver dynamic. Caregivers of these children often experience them as maladaptive, oppositional, or dangerous and respond with withdrawal or maybe punishment or counter control. The work is to help caregivers change how they see the child's behavior, not as misbehavior, but as self-protection. For the child's behavior to change, the caregiver must change by healing and growing. This view is often not well accepted by caregivers who believe the problem is exclusively the child's. DMM therapy aims to help caregivers respond with calm authority, emotional containment, and consistent availability, but this can only be achieved if they heal their own attachment issues. Without caregiver healing and growth, child change is difficult. In other words, to help your children, you have to work on your own stuff first, and their change will follow after that. That's a lot. Wow. But it really highlights some key points. And finally, to wrap this up, this is long-term relationship-focused work with a strong emphasis on caregiver involvement, commitment, and willingness to change. This contrasts with typical therapeutic approaches that place the emphasis on the child, assume appropriate parenting, and use reward and punishment behavioral techniques and skills-based behavior management. In summary, in the DMM, helping children with acting out, misbehaving, attachment adaptations means reducing the danger they feel and increasing caregiver reliability so that the survival strategies together are no longer necessary and can be replaced with more flexible, reflective, and cooperative ways of relating. Right? We'll only read the following question, but not the answer. So we invite you to go back on their website and review later. But another question that was submitted was, I was trying to set boundaries with my teenage daughter, and she told me she hated me because I'm a narcissist. These days, I hear that term thrown around all the time, almost like an insult. What is narcissism? So there's a nice long response to that, and we encourage you to go back and review that. There. And this is just highlighting what we're going to do today. We're going to start with a practice session, and unfortunately, as we shared, Helga's not feeling well today, so Michael has agreed to step in and volunteer for that. Then Nicole and I will review the last part of mindfulness skills in the workbook. And time permitting, we can briefly review the tools and strategies we have discussed so far, or give examples of how to use the tools we talk about. There, thank you.
Don't stop the recording yet.
Oh,
It'll be like a couple of minutes.
oh,
So, oh no, I'm just talking to Lauren. Okay. So Yeah, I think what about the DMM and their view on, kids who have issues, right? Um, I think nothing in this is like absolute. It's not ever 100%. Okay. So there are cases where, because we talked about temperament and we've talked about sort of character, which is what happens to you. This is assuming that the problems are more lay with attachment. Okay. There are kids who have extremes of temperament, right? And they may have like very appropriate parenting, but they still might have issues. All right. So just wanted to kind of mention that. Uh, but it is like not a popular view sometimes because it means that, sometimes if your kids have issues, um, you're having issues as well. So when we, in our work, we always go back even several generations because you see the patterns kind of from one generation to the other. So it's really interesting. Okay, now let's just do a brief review of rational mind remediation. Now we think this was the session just before we went on the Christmas break. So some of you, with Christmas and that, you may have forgotten. So what I'd like to, before we do our practice, just like very, very quickly, in about 5 minutes, review rational mind remediation so that then when we're doing our practice, you kind of have a little bit of an idea, just a reminder. Okay. So rational mind remediation is the term here in the course that we use for a lot of cognitive behavioral strategies. So cognitive behavioral therapy strategies are basically, it's using your rational mind to get out of your holes. That's what it is. Okay. And, um, you know, cognitive behavioral therapy is very popular, can be very helpful. We kind of outlined that it has some limitations, right? So if you have a lot of trauma, if you have a lot of attachment issues, there are emotional changes that just by changing your thoughts, it's very hard to change those emotions because they're very powerful. They're deeply rooted. All right. So if you have a trauma and if you have attachment issues, you have to do like a little bit more depth work. You have to work at the level of your body, at the level of your emotions, and understand that. And that's the difference between cognitive behavioral therapy and more psychodynamic approaches like Freud, because Freud had that notion that, the unconscious, this is really important. And Aaron Beck, the originator of cognitive behavioral therapy, said, you know what? Yeah, that may be true because he was trained in psychoanalysis. But he said, let's focus just on the part of the iceberg that's out of the water, and you can get a lot of effect. You can get a lot of benefits just from focusing on that, and that's all true. So what we said is that we there are courses that teach people how to use cognitive behavioral therapy. And if you see a therapist, they're probably, most therapists still do cognitive behavioral therapy, although that's changing a little bit. People are doing more and more things like internal family systems. There's like, growth in how many therapists are doing internal family systems, but still probably the majority are doing cognitive behavioral therapy. But see, like a thing in this course is that to teach you, some of you may already be familiar with cognitive behavioral therapy, but to teach the whole thing it would take a long time. Like the courses that we did at the hospital, it was 8 to 12 weeks. Okay. We taught people how to do, the strategies, which are the thought records and the behavioral experiments. And, so we taught all of that, right? We practiced with people in the way we do in this course. So in this course, we thought, we still want to teach those basics, right? But we need to find a hack. So a quick way of doing it over one session, right? And what we really kind of hope that you can do, because this is the essence of least the thought record part of cognitive behavioral therapy, is you want to go from emotional thinking to rational thinking. That's the gist of the thought records. It's to take you from emotional thinking, which is you're in the hole, right, to rational thinking, right? Because then in rational thoughts, when you have rational thoughts about stuff, you're gonna it's gonna start to feel a little bit differently, and your behavior is going to be different. Your behavior is going to be more rational rather than emotional. So essentially, the rational mind remediation that we presented before the holidays is kind of a hack to try to take you from emotional mind to rational mind quite quickly. Okay. So to read that, any method that gets you out of emotional thinking and into rational thinking is, in essence, doing a thought record. One of the simplest and most powerful hacks for going from emotional to rational mind is to ask yourself, okay, if a good friend came to you with the exact same situation, what would you say to them? Right? Because we're very good, and people say this, we're very good at giving other people advice. Why? Because we're not kind of as emotionally involved, right? They come to us and we tell them exactly the right thing, right? But it's very hard to tell us when you're kind of the ones experiencing emotional mind. It's very hard to give yourself rational advice, okay? Because you're stuck in emotional mind. So this is one hack, and the other one is, if you imagine a calm, well-regulated friend, they were in the same situation that you were in. So this situation you did a chain or a whole analysis for. How would they handle it? And this doesn't work for everybody, but for some people it does work. So it's a hack. Interesting because Helga actually came up with a third way. There's more than two ways of doing this, but Helga came up with a third way. And her way was she actually has like a couple of good friends, her brother and a friend of hers, who she trusts and she listens to. And she went to them and asked them, "What would you do?" And for some of us, like when people give us advice, if we don't trust them, we don't know them, kind of go, "Yeah, but," right? But what was interesting about Helga was that, yeah, she said, "Yeah, that makes sense." And it did help her to go from emotional mind to rational mind, just listening to two people's perspectives, not at the same time, but they said basically the same thing to her. And then she thought, okay, yeah, that makes sense. And she got out of emotional mind into rational mind. So this works, doing these hacks work because when we imagine someone else, we automatically shift into rational thinking from emotional thinking. We become more generous, thoughtful, and evidence-based. We stop catastrophizing. We gain access to the very wisdom that emotions were blocking. In other words, this hack bypasses the entire formal structure of a thought record, but produces the same end result, a cognitive reframe. It gets the person into the part of their brain that can evaluate evidence, consider context, and see nuance. This captures the essence of the thought record. So this is the algorithm. Okay. So what happened? Describe the triggering event. So we're going to go through this with Mike. Okay. Describe the triggering event in one or two sentences. What am I feeling? So name the emotions and rate their intensity. This is at the time that thing happened. What is the hot thought? What was the most upsetting thought? The one that feels most true in the moment. And next, do either step 4A or 4B. And if you guys want to take a picture of this, might be good because I don't think I'm going to keep this up there because it'll just shine on our faces. But if you want to follow as we go through the steps, okay? So 4A or 4B, and 4A is if a friend were in the situation, imagine a friend you care about, they come to you with the exact same situation. What would you tell them? What would I tell them? What perspective would I offer them about, their situation? Alternatively, so you don't have to do both, you do one or the other. If a calm, well-regulated friend were in my shoes, so imagine someone was grounded, thoughtful, and balanced, how would they see the situation? what would they probably do next? Okay. And then you come up with my balanced thought. After considering the above, write a more balanced, realistic, compassionate interpretation of what happened to you. And, then you can write out, in the template, what your balanced thought is. Re-rate the emotions. After doing the exercise, rate your emotions again. And hopefully your emotions have kind of come down. And then, what's important after this is that, go and use your editing, splicing, and pasting, right? So you're not finished at this point. Go and imagine yourself in the situation that happened to you, right? But instead of feeling, being an emotional mind, being in the hole, feeling what you felt, and reacting or behaving the way you did, now imagine yourself doing this, right? So that's that extra step that you have, and you have to practice that, because the more you practice that, next time, situations are never exactly the same. It's not going to be same situation, but situations are often quite similar. All right. And the more you rehearse, the more you will have the presence of mind because you've practiced to, instead of falling into a hole, then, kind of staying in rational mind in the same situation. Okay. So that's a little bit of a review. Does that kind of make sense as a quick review? All right. So this is another, just another way of saying what I just said. Um, all right. So the two algorithms there. And sorry. Oh, okay. So that's a template that you can use. That template, it's just what I said again, and you can use those columns to, if you want to take a picture of this as well, because that's what we're going to go through. Okay. And I'll probably remember this as I go through with Mike, but you never know, right? I might forget, so I might ask for your help. Okay. All right. So this is a new slide that I included because I'm aware that some people are doing this on YouTube and they're not attending the live session. So I feel I need to kind of do this for those people. So some portions of this session have been intentionally removed. In the live course, we include practices with volunteers during which we use the tools, skills, and strategies to work on real situations from their lives. Okay, obviously to protect their privacy, because we don't want to put this out there just into the ether, and create a safe learning environment, because I don't think we get volunteers who've said, oh, we're just going to post this stuff, right? Those segments are not included in the YouTube version that you're watching if you're doing this on YouTube. So we'll pause the recording now and resume it after the practice, okay? So Lauren, if you can pause.
Hello, everybody. We'll just take up the Zoom participants' results of the Zoom poll here. So question 1, has my nervous system actually changed? Since October, my ability to stay present and regulated during emotional stress has A, not changed, is about 4%, increased a little, 46%, increased a moderate amount, 33%, increased a lot, 15%, or it has decreased, and that was 0%. Question 2, is the work stuck in my head or living in my body? Which best describes my relationship to the tools and skills discussed in the course? A, I mostly struggled to understand them, is 7%. B, I understand them intellectually, but rarely use them. That's 15%. C, I occasionally use some of them, 37%. And D, I regularly use many of them. That's 26%. How do I scroll? Oh, you get the mouse.
Click and hold. Hold on.
Oh,
Dramatic
zoom
scene.
in on her.
Dramatic scene. You have to click. Oh, the clicking and dragging is not working. Let's see. There we go.
Okay. Phew. Question 3, what most often blocks me from using the tools and skills? When I don't use the tools and skills, it's usually because of A, wanting to feel good right away, 8%. B, wanting to get away from something uncomfortable, 31%. Feeling tired or foggy or unmotivated, 35%. Feeling restless, overwhelmed, or preoccupied, 22%. Or finally, doubting that the practices will really help. That was 4%. This is too much
Two-person work.
coordination for my fingers, sorry.
We'll do all the way to the end. There you
Okay,
go.
here we go. 2 more. Question 4. How do I relate to these obstacles? When one of these obstacles shows up, I usually get frustrated or judge myself. 36%. Try to push through it, 25%. Give up for the moment, 7%. Notice it and sometimes work with it, 18%. Gently accept it and keep going, 14%. Question 5, what would help me use the tools and skills more consistently? Understand the tools and skills better, 17%. Be more intentional about applying the tools and skills in my life, 62%. Or set time aside to use the tools on a regular basis, and that was 21%. Now I go here, right? There, in the poll. And then
We just go to X. Yeah.
do I go back?
Excellent. Okay,
Okay.
and it should, hold on.
Oh my goodness.
There's a zoom. There's a close up.
Zoom in again.
Super close.
Oh my, let's go by that. Okay. Whew. Okay. So this is our last week of mindfulness skills. We've talked a few weeks about mindfulness skills. They're really, really important. So we can't stress this enough. But this will be our last week. And then in 2 weeks, we're going to start on the 3rd module of the DBT workbook, and that's emotional regulation skills. So there's emotional regulation skills left, and then a really important module on interpersonal effectiveness skills. And we're going to cover 8 topics today. Actually, it's only 7. We realize that number 5 is just a title for a portion in the workbook. But so there's 7 topics we'll be talking about today. Does someone cooperate? Sorry. It's not going.
Export.
Hasn't screwed up my computer again.
There's the zoom in on the pictures.
There.
Just press that one.
Yeah.
Keep your fingers away from everything else.
Okay. Oops, sorry. So being mindful in our daily life. Okay. We've talked about this before. It's really important to build that mindfulness in everything we do. And I know I used this in illustration before, but I thought it was very appropriate here again, because it's something I think we can all relate to. So I think we've all experienced the times where you've driven somewhere, whether it's work, to the grocery store, or even home, and you don't remember getting there. Yet you got there safely and you followed all the rules of the road, but somehow you were mentally somewhere else, right? So that's sort of what we would refer to as an autopilot. And that's fairly harmless in certain situations, but think of autopilot being present in more difficult, challenging situations. So like an argument, or a stressful situation at work, or having a difficult conversation with someone that you love. This is when problems can arise, because when we're on autopilot, it's our emotions that are driving. Our body reacts before our brain has a chance to catch up. Okay, so in those situations, we might snap, we might react in a way we would later regret. We might say yes to something when really we wanted to say no. So this is where mindfulness will help. And it helps us wake up in the moment and be more present and aware of what's going on. And often when we're feeling stressed, our body feels that stress, that tension, when it's maybe a little too heightened. Mindfulness helps us identify when we're starting to feel stress earlier on so that you can deal with it better. So it's really, really important. Mindfulness won't stop the stress from happening. It just helps us to notice it so that we can react in a better, healthier way. So being mindful of our sensations, feelings, and thoughts and behavior is really, really important. And we encourage you to use those crisis plans, the goals diary cards, and chain analysis to help with all this. Think of mindfulness as a muscle in your body that needs to get stronger. And the only way it can get stronger is through practicing on a regular basis. To help you remember, I know in the poll questions today, they talked about setting an intention is something they need to do to help them practice these skills and tools. So setting intention might simply be putting that down on your goals diary card, or maybe wearing a bracelet to remind yourself, or putting up sticky notes, a reminder on your phone to help you remember to do some practice. Oh, no, Dr. Cleto, IT support.
I don't know what that box is.
I don't know what that box is either. Sorry, everyone.
Oh, there we go.
Okay. It
Maybe
does-
not.
Okay, I'm gonna try something. Oh, there.
There, tech support left.
So the book, on page 133 and 134 kind of highlights some of the mindfulness exercises. So we talk a lot about our breath and practicing deep breathing. And in mindfulness, there's lots of different exercises. But one key thing about breathing that we really feel is most beneficial is counting that breath. And when you count your breath, you notice how you're feeling inside. You notice your thoughts and you try to let them go. And in the book, I think it's page 102, kind of highlights a very simple breathing exercise that we talked about in chapter 4. And that was counting your breath to a count of 4. So doing 4 deep breaths, and after each deep breath, you say, 1 on exhalation. Inhale again. 2, 3, and 4. 4. And really notice the breath in your body. Perhaps put your hand on your stomach to help you realize and feel the breath coming and going in your body. Now, what's important here is adding in a self-compassion meditation statement at the end of the breath. So these would be things like, may I be peaceful, may I be safe, may I be healthy, may I be healthy, happy, and free from suffering. So let's practice that real quick. So we've taken a couple deep breaths, and now on the next 4 breaths, we're going to say those self-compassion statements. So breathe in and quietly say, may I be peaceful. Breathe in again and say, may I be safe. Again, breathe in. May I be healthy. One more time, breathe in. May I be happy and free from suffering. Those are those self-compassion statements, very similar to the meditation exercise we practiced at the start of the session today. And by doing these mindfulness exercises every day, you will strengthen that mindfulness muscle. Trust us, but it has to be done on a regular basis. Okay? Doing a mindfulness practice helps us build the mindfulness muscle, as I said, that are required when you need to be mindful of old patterns of thinking, feeling, and behaviors so we can substitute them for more adaptive and healthy ones. And also, mindfulness practices are one of the treatments recommended for ADHD. And if you think about that, when we're more present by being mindful, you're being more focused and attentive to what you are doing. Nicole now is going to talk about how to do tasks more mindfully, which is very similar.
Perfect. So Sufism, the mystical branch of Islam, emphasizes dhikr, the remembrance of God, and strives to live with constant awareness of the divine presence in every action. So doing the dishes is not just scrubbing plates, but purifying the heart, remembering gratitude for the food that was on them. You know, when I read that, I think of my daughter, my youngest daughter, who's 6. She'll sit at the kitchen table and she'll ask me where the meat comes from, what animal. And it seems a little bit dark. But she goes, "Thank you, chicken, for giving us the food today." And I was like, oh my gosh, at 6 years old. And at first she's an animal lover, but I was like, for her to be at 6 years old saying, you know what, thank you for that. That's huge. Gratitude, I think, is something we definitely take for granted. So I think incorporating that also brings us more mindful into the present moment as well.
Mhm.
So cleaning the house is sweeping away dust as one sweeps away ego and distraction, making the space ready for presence. Cooking can be preparing food as an act of love and service, seasoning it with remembrance and intention, turning nourishment into prayer. In this way, even ordinary chores become spiritual practice. The acronym FLAME can help us do everyday tasks more mindfully and spiritually. So the F for FLAME, focus and shift our attention to be mindful on the present moment. The L, let go of distracting thoughts and judgments. The A, use radical acceptance to remain non-judgmental. Use wise mind to make healthy decisions and do what's effective to accomplish our goals. And then go over. Oh, there we go. When Indira Gandhi was Prime Minister of India, facing moments of intense political pressure, such as cabinet crises, military decisions, or party revolt, those around her sometimes noticed something odd. Instead of pacing or talking it through, she would go into her kitchen and begin scrubbing pots and pans. Has anybody done that when they feel overwhelmed, is do an outlet like that? Like something intense, like cleaning, running, something like that. Art sometimes. So when asked why, she is said to have replied in some version of, "When everything feels overwhelming, I return to something simple and real. My hands know what to do and my mind becomes clear." Before modern neuroscience had language for it, Gandhi knew how to ground her nervous system, returning it to calm and alert. When her mind veered towards fight and flight, she used a rhythmic, purposeful, and sensory task to pendulate, and her rational and wise mind come back online. So first, this is a little exercise we can do. Choose something small you have in front of you. Could be a pen, a cup, maybe just your hands. You can also focus on your breath as well. There's no wrong way to do this. First, place both feet on the floor. Take one slow breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. Bring your attention to the task or item you've chosen. So I'm going to choose a pen. Notice what you feel physically, the temperature of the item, maybe the pressure, the texture, the movement. If your mind wanders, and it will, that's okay. Just notice where it went without judging yourself, and gently bring your attention back to the task or item. Just observe what's already happening. Focus on doing one thing on purpose in the present moment. Take one more slow breath in and out. And you can bring your attention back to your room. Did anyone notice I know I didn't give a lot of time, but did anyone notice their mind go to somewhere else? I know when I was looking at the pen, I was like, oh my gosh, I hope I can say the next thing and not lose track of where I am. Right? But it's okay. That's what our mind does. So is to acknowledge, where was my mind taking me? More anxiety. Bring it back to the present. Oh yeah, holding the pen, right? We're getting better.
I know, we're getting better at that. Yes. So, how to be mindful of our activities. There's a lot of similarities to what Nicole was talking about. As Nicole shared, mindfulness means focusing on one thing at a time in the present moment, because this will really help regulate those emotions. So Nicole gave a great example of a pen. I'm going to use an example of a cup of tea or a cup of coffee, because I think that's something people can relate to as well. So let's imagine you're drinking a cup of tea. Instead of just drinking it, like on autopilot, and spending time checking your phone and thinking about, oh my goodness, what do I have to do today? Oh, I got to do this, this, and this. Really try to focus on that one thing of drinking the tea. Notice how the cup feels in your hand and using your senses. Focus on the tactile sensation. How does it feel, the warmth of the cup in your hand? Then a sense of smell. Smell the tea. What does it smell like for you? Then taste that first sip. Oh, goodness. Savor that first sip and how it tastes and feels in your mouth. What does it feel like, the temperature as you swallow? Simple little thing, but really try to focus on that one task. You know, we're not trying to make having a cup of tea seem real special, but we really want you to just fully be there for it, that cup of tea, and really savor it. Okay? And while you're doing that, focusing on one thing at a time, try not to get judgmental. You want to learn to identify and separate judgmental thoughts from our experiences. So back to that cup of tea. Don't say to yourself, this is really boring. I never will get mindfulness. Let that thought go and replace it with a kinder thought. You know what? I'm doing the best I can. I'm trying at least. And what this does, by practicing with a very simple little task of drinking a cup of tea, it helps strengthen that mindfulness muscle so that you're better prepared to cope in more challenging situations. When you might have done a mistake and you're beating yourself up, oh, such a failure, you'll be able to be more mindful in the moment and say, yeah, that happened. It did happen, but I did try my best. Okay, I'll do better next time. Kind of a radical acceptance can be built in, right? And what that does by strengthening that mindfulness muscle, it helps develop our wise or self-observing mind. So to help you with strengthening all that, there is a template of a mindfulness activities record in the workbook on pages 138 and 139 that you can track what you practiced in a week. It just helps you be more accountable. It might help you remember to try these exercises. So to help illustrate this further, we have a short little story here. So there was a young student who went to a great Zen. He was a Zen archer and said, I want to learn to hit that bullseye. This master replied, then forget the bullseye. This confused the student. But isn't that the whole point? The master handed him a bow and said, stand. He corrected his feet, and then his spine, then his shoulders, then his breathing. then how he held the bow, then how he drew that string, and how he released it. For weeks, the student did nothing but stand, draw, and release, sometimes without even shooting an arrow. Sometimes he shot at a blank wall. Frustrated, the student protested, "When will I learn to hit the target?" The master answered, "You are still trying to hit something. That is why you miss." So the student kept practicing the movements, not to succeed, not to win, not to impress, but to simply do them exactly. Over months, then years, the movement stopped feeling forced. The bow lifted itself. The string drew itself. The arrow released itself. And then one day, without aiming, without thinking, without wanting, the arrow flew and struck the exact center of the target. The master said quietly, "Now it has shot." Does that resonate with anybody? Does anybody understand how that relates to mindfulness? You know, the story does resemble what mindfulness is all about, right? So in the story, the student was at first very focused on the result, hitting that bullseye, whereas the master was focused on the moment. And mindfulness teaches us the same thing when you think about it. When we become obsessed with the outcome, we lose the present moment. Mindfulness teaches us to focus on the process, not the bullseye. So it's about taking baby steps and practicing. And believe me, it'll just become easier and easier. So you'll be hitting right on target in time. So be patient with yourself. Has anybody tried archery? In high school, we had archery class. It's really difficult, really, really difficult. So, okay, oops.
That's good. I'll jump right in there. Okay, so common hindrances to mindfulness. So Buddhism describes 5 hindrances. Pachanivarana. I had to look that up. To mindfulness. So the first one is desire. Refers to the wish for things to be different than they are right now. Aversion is being angry with or having ill towards what is. Judgment is an example of aversion. Sleepiness, feeling sleepy, heavy, or dull. Sleepiness can be the result of fatigue or an act of unconscious resistance to facing scary or painful emotions that might arise during a mindfulness practice. Restlessness, experiencing restless thoughts, feelings, or sensations that take us away from the practice. So it's the urge to move, stop, or rush through the exercise. Often shows up when slowing down feels uncomfortable. That one is for me. I remember always being a kid, right before the buses came at school. They're going to forget me. They're going to forget me. And so we'd be summing up the day and I'm just like, oh my gosh, the bus is going to leave. Bus is going to leave. I could even, if the teacher told me, you know what, tomorrow we have a test, probably wouldn't have heard her, right? I was so restless and anxious of being in the moment. It felt uncomfortable to stop. Yoga is the same feeling for me. Going the slow movements, I really am thinking about the next thing I need to do. So that's one for me resonates. The 5th one, doubt. Having thoughts such as I can't handle this. I don't know what to do. What good is this? Or this is not for me. A lot of thoughts is like, I might be doing this wrong. You can reframe that and saying, noticing judgment is mindfulness, right? So you're actually practicing that even though you're bringing that to your attention. The goal of mindfulness isn't to feel better. It's to notice what's here in the present moment. The hindrances arise whenever the mind forgets that experience can be allowed and instead tries to grab, fight, escape, or control it. So working with hindrances. To work with hindrances first and foremost, we need to notice and non-judgmentally acknowledge them. So for desire, recall that no matter how many times you get what you desire, you always want more. Let me find my other page. So I notice wanting. Wanting is here. I don't have to act on it though. Aversion. So recognize that anger and ill will are great teachers. Balance these feelings with compassion and kindness. So this is unpleasant. I can allow it to be here for now. Sleepiness. Recognize that it is a powerful feeling that demands your full attention. Use an active mindfulness practice such as mindful walking. I notice heaviness. I'm waking up in my body. Open your eyes, sit upright, ground yourself through putting your feet on the floor or maybe your hands on the side of a bed or a chair. Restlessness. Use a narrow focus such as counting breaths for your mindfulness practice. Doubt. If your mind is racing, concentrate your attention on the present moment. Engage with mindfulness teachers or inspirational readings. Doubt is a thought, not a fact. I'm practicing noticing. If you noticed a hindrance today, you were practicing mindfulness correctly. And this is what Joan said. This is
Just a,
just
yeah,
the title.
just the title. So I mean. Yes, so mindfulness and meditation. So in the workbook, they talk about other meditation practices you can try to deepen your understanding. So if you remember, Marsha Linehan, who is the founder of dialectical behavior therapy, she was really inspired by the Buddhist meditation traditions, and she actually became a Buddhist nun. She believed in it so much. So on page 142 of the workbook, there is a subject exploring mindfulness further, which invites us to try different meditation practices. And the objective is to help us gain a deeper appreciation of mindfulness and how it supports and promotes mental health. Although these practices are grounded in spiritual traditions, they do not require you to adhere to a specific religious belief. Here. So one of them is using kindness and compassion. So some meditation practices focuses on fostering that 5 heart qualities. So that's gratitude, gentleness, generosity, empathy, and loving kindness. Oh my goodness, we can't stress this enough. I think we're a very kind and compassionate society, but one thing that we are failing to do more of is being kind and compassionate to ourselves. So this is something I really encourage you to practice. So working on kindness and compassion helps us to be more non-judgmental. Loving kindness meditations have been shown to promote physical and psychological healing. It's really, really important. Loving kindness is described as a deep friendliness and a welcoming, or as a quality of embodying compassion and cherishing, filled with forgiveness and unconditional love. And at the beginning of the session today, we did a loving kindness meditation. And there are lots available on YouTube that we encourage you to try. So I was thinking about this time of year to help illustrate kindness and compassion and how we can build that into our lives. I don't know about any of you, but I find January is sort of a depressing month for me. I guess you would say I struggle with the January blues. I don't know if you can relate. And my birthday's in January. Maybe that's why. As I get older, I don't want to think about it. But it's just me, right? And I think it's because it's so gray out. You wake up in the morning, it's dark. We have very few sunlit days, it seems. There might be a letdown sensation from the holidays that you kind of go, oh, Christmas is over and I feel kind of let down. Or maybe it's the expectations of having like what they call those resolutions for the new year. Oh, I got to be motivated. I got to be doing more. And you feel kind of, oh, I'm just not there yet, right? So I called it January blues. So also there's less daylight, right? So mindfulness helps us notice how January actually feels. And kindness and compassion helps us overcome it and deal with it. So imagine like this morning, as most mornings, I wake up to the alarm at 6 a.m. And my alarm, by the way, isn't a phone alarm. It's my dog, my golden retriever, Ellie. She's right there in my face at 6 a.m. Time to get up. Look out, it's dark, it's dreary. Today it was rainy and oh, okay. And my thought is, oh, I don't have the energy for this. And mindfulness sort of notices my heaviness. Compassion says to me, of course you feel this way. It's winter, right? Take a slow, deep breath. Whew. Place my hand on my chest. And I say, may I move through today gently. Or use some of the other self-compassion statements. May I be safe. May I be peaceful. May I be healthy. May I be at ease. May I be happy. Right? Try those. And then I'm always amazed with my dog. Doesn't matter what time of year, she's awake at 6 and she's happy-go-lucky. She doesn't suffer from January blues. She wants up and she's always happy to see me and my husband. And her main motivation, number one, is to get downstairs to eat her dog food. So, but I admire that. And she really lifts our spirits for sure. So January doesn't need more pressure. So if you struggle with January blues, it doesn't need more pressure. It needs more kindness and compassion. And mindfulness shows us how we feel, and compassion helps us to live with it. So simply put, you can comfort yourself gently. Wrap yourself up in that blanket. Say those compassionate statements. Sip on that warm cup of tea and be kind to yourself. Okay? Instead of trying to push through things. See if that helps.
And the last one, number 8, paying attention to spaciousness and stillness. So sometimes struggling to be non-judgmental or to relax during meditation is a sign that we are not resting in our wholeness. Often we over-identify with an active and present smaller part or parts of ourself. Consider the metaphor of the ocean and its waves. We talk a lot about the ocean and waves in this program. The waves and ocean are one. The turbulence of a storm will eventually pass, and even during the storm, the deeper water is still calm. Our depth is the ocean. Our surface sensations, our feelings and thoughts are the waves. Sometimes we identify with the temporary waves and forget the permanence and calm of the ocean depths. So by shifting focus at times on purpose to experiences often not noticed or taken for granted, you can become much more flexible in your attention, more mindful, and more able to break the habitual identification with old habits of thinking and feeling. So an example might be, you're feeling overwhelmed and irritated after a difficult conversation. Your thoughts are racing and your body is tense. Pause intentionally. Stop moving for a moment. Let your shoulders drop and place feet on the floor. Take a slow breath in and notice the space between your breaths. Imagine creating space around that feeling of irritation, as if the feeling has room to exist without taking it over. Your thoughts are still there, but you're not chasing them. Your body is still, your attention is open. After a few breaths, the intensity maybe hasn't disappeared, but you may feel less pulled to react. The outcome, you respond from wise mind instead of emotional mind. So before, we did our Zoom poll already. So keep in mind that poll questions are not tests. I feel like everyone's like, oh, did I answer that right? Or, there, what if somebody judges me and notices me that I click that? They're also not about whether you've been good or bad. They're simply a mindful way of reflecting on where you are right now. One of the core ideas behind emotional regulation and mindfulness is that we can't work with what we don't see. So this week's poll, which is what we've done, is really just about seeing and noticing what has changed, what hasn't, what feels easy, and what feels hard. Some of you may notice your window of tolerance has grown. Some of you may feel it hasn't. Some of you may understand the material very well, but struggle to use it. All of that is completely human, and all of it belongs here. As you had answered the poll, we invite you to let go of how you think you should be doing and just answer from your honest experience. That honesty is what actually creates growth, not getting the right answer. You've already done that? There we go.
Do you guys want to stay up there?
Sure.
For the interpreter? Okay.
Mhm.
Let's get out of there. I think, Lauren, we can stop the recording.
Alrighty.
Thank you.